Hey guys, Taylor here from Etherspot. So today we're going to be looking at our second TransactionKit tutorial. So today we are going to learn how to build this staking example, this demo that we've already built here. This is the finished product, but I'll walk you through how to build it. So essentially this in two parts. What this does is it will mint some TransactionKit tokens. This is an ERC20 token contract that we've built ourselves at Etherspot. So that's what that first button is going to do there. I've populated this address with some Mumbai Matic already, so I can run these transactions. We'll just wait for that to go through. So yeah, it's going to mint those TransactionKit tokens, and then with another contract call, it's going to approve those tokens and then stake them in another contract, and in return we'll get staked tokens. So just essentially how you would use any DeFi staking app. We're going to show you how to do that with TransactionKit in this really nice UI, which makes it really, really simple. So some of the things we're going to learn today, we're going to learn how to do custom contract calls with TransactionKit, and we're going to learn how to batch a couple of transactions together. We're going to see how to use the ERC20 approval transaction and the custom contract call functions. So the first transaction has gone through for the TransactionKit token. Nice. So we're going to press the second transaction, which is going to approve the tokens that we now have in our account, and we're going to stake them and receive the staked TransactionKit tokens in return. So yeah, the second transaction has gone through. We've staked our TransactionKit tokens, and in return we've received staked TransactionKit tokens. So now you have an idea of how the app we're building actually works. We're just going to go ahead, create a sandbox, and we're going to paste the code in, and I'm going to talk through each part of the code so you can deploy this sort of app yourself, or you can use our own contracts to build your own proof of concept. But the idea is you'll be able to use this tutorial to hook into your own contracts and build your own staking app. So yeah, just to get started, we have this, I just created a fresh sandbox demo. I've just created a React app. The packages that I've added here are the important ones are Ethers and Etherspot's TransactionKit. Make sure you've got it in the latest version. Ethers, make sure it's on version 5.4.0 because that's the version that we currently support. If you're going to be copying the code directly, you're going to need some of these dependencies as well. This emotion React, styled, and movie/material. Now, you don't need this when you're actually building your own app. This is just some of the styling we've added just to make the demo look a little nicer. So yeah, all of this code is going to be on etherspot.fyi, and then we'll also have a link to the code sandbox so you can look at it directly, tinker with it, fork it, do whatever you want with it. So we'll start with the index.js file. Oh yeah, sorry, I'll talk through the files I've added as well. So when we create a React app, we won't have this components folder. So I've created this folder. Then I've added two directories within it: mint TransactionKit tokens and stake TransactionKit tokens. And I've added a JavaScript file for both of these to create these components in. Now currently they're empty, but I'll paste the code in a little bit. But as I said, we'll start with the index.js, and I'll just paste the code in that I've got from the Etherspot Prime docs. So what is happening here? We're using Ethers to create a random wallet, and then we're getting the private key of that private wallet, or of that randomly generated wallet, so that we can pass it into the Etherspot TransactionKit. So what this tag is doing is it's creating an Etherspot smart wallet based off of this private key that we've passed in. With the chain ID here, I'm passing in Mumbai testnet chain ID, which means we're going to generate Etherspot smart wallets on all of the testnets because that's what we want to work with today. Great, so that's all we're going to need for index.js. It's pretty simple, this one. Now moving over to app.js. I'll scroll down here. So in this tutorial, it is just going to be pretty much like a copy and pasting exercise from the docs. But as I said, I'm going to talk through each of all the code in it, so you can do the same and then use these functions to develop your own app hopefully. So I'm going to copy over the dapp.js file and paste it in here, which is probably going to break my app for now because we're missing a lot of things, but that's fine. So what are we doing here? First of all, we're importing the mint transaction tokens and the stake transaction tokens components from the files, but they're empty right now, which is why it's throwing errors. We're going to add a couple of use states here for, so basically we want to change the app based on if the staking transaction has gone through and if the mint transaction has gone through. We're going to use this Mumbai address here with this use wallet address. So essentially what this use wallet address does is it's getting us the Etherspot smart wallet address. Here we need to define whether we're going to use Etherspot or Etherspot Prime. So this is the difference between using version 1 of Etherspot or Etherspot Prime, which is our most recent version, which is using 4337 technologies in the background. We highly recommend we use this as is what we're adding support for going forward. And then we're just going to add this use state just so we can save our Mumbai smart wallet address. This code is not important. We got a couple of functions here though. So this is essentially just to know if we have sent the staking transaction and when we've sent the mint transaction, so we know what to display on the screen to the user. If I scroll down a little bit here, this is us calling our components. So we want the mint transaction tokens component to show up first of all, because we first want the user to mint their tokens. And then we want the stake TransactionKit tokens to show up after. And this will be basically showing up based on if it's sent the mint transaction or if it's sent the mint and the staking transaction. We'll use that within these components to show what to display. We're passing in our Mumbai smart wallet address because we want this, we need to pass this as a variable into the smart contracts. So we just want to pass it in because we want to say, okay, mint tokens to this address, and then stake tokens, and give the stake tokens to this address. The text at the bottom, this is just to display, as I showed earlier, this is just to display some of the addresses. So this is the address of the wallet that we've created today, or we've created in browser. This will be different every time. And then these two are just the contracts. So you'll probably change these for, interacting with your own contract. Okay, and that's all we need for app.js. There's not too much actually going on in terms of Etherspot stuff here. It's kind of just basic React. So we'll see more interesting stuff happening within this mint transaction tokens.js file. I'll just paste the code in here. Hit save. Okay, so a couple of things we need to import here. Etherspot contract transaction, Etherspot batches, Etherspot batch, and use Etherspot transactions. So Etherspot contract transaction, this is the function we're going to use to actually hook in to a custom contract on the blockchain. So if I can, I'll talk about it in a minute. Etherspot batches, this is so we and Etherspot batch, this is so we can batch up multiple transactions. So each batch will contain a number of transactions, and then we can also send multiple batches at the same time. So if you want to send, why you would send multiple batches at the same time, it's if you want to send the same transaction on multiple chains, which is very possible with Etherspot. And then use Etherspot transaction. Out of this, we're just going to get these two hooks, estimate and send. So for every time we batch together transactions using TransactionKit, we need to estimate how much gas it's going to cost for the user, so we can display to them how much it's actually going to cost them, and then send all those transactions together, so they're all sent together in that batch. I'll scroll down a little bit here. So we're doing some things here where we're just checking if the mint transaction has been sent, because this means, after we send the transaction, as we see here, we don't want the button to show up anymore. So we don't want them to, we don't want them to be able to send the mint transaction twice. Okay, so moving down here into the interesting Etherspot related code. So we've got Etherspot batches, Etherspot batch, and Etherspot contract transaction. So because we're using Etherspot Prime here, we want to explicitly declare that. And then within this, we have a batch. So we could put multiple transactions within here if we want to. But for now, this first transaction, we're only doing one. And we're going to call this Etherspot contract transaction function. So here you can see the values we're passing in. We're passing in the contract address, this address being the TransactionKit token contract. The ABI, which is the function as how it's been written in Solidity. So you can see we have a function called mint, and the two values in Solidity that are passed in are the address and the uint. The method name here is just mint, as we've seen above, and the params we pass in are the first one being this Mumbai smart wallet address, the value we've passed into this component, and we're just hard coding the value to 10 here, using the parse ether function to make sure it gets handled by the smart contract correctly. And yeah, the rest of this code is just, actually no, there's one important thing here. We've got this estimate and mint function here for when we click on button, and I'll show you that's defined above here. So what we're doing here is calling those estimate and send hooks that I talked about earlier. So what these are going to do is they're going to estimate everything within this batch, work out how much gas is going to cost, and then send the transaction to Etherspot for processing. And that's it for the mint token one. We just close out the tags, and that'll be it for the first part of it. So the second component for the stake TransactionKit tokens.js, it's actually very, very similar in how it's laid out. So I'm not going to go over all of it, but we are going to take a look again at the interesting. I'll take out this code because it's not actually. This is optional, and we'll keep it more simple for now. Yeah, so the interesting part here is we see two transactions which will be included in one transaction, which makes this really powerful. You know, the ability to batch transactions so easily like this. So for approving ERC20 tokens, we actually have this Etherspot approval transaction function. So we can see the token address. This is the ERC20 TransactionKit token that we talked about before that we just minted. The receiver address that we want to be able to send the tokens to. This is the staking TransactionKit token address. And the value, we want to send 10 tokens, like we've said before, or like we defined in the last component. And then, similar to what we did in the mint TransactionKit tokens, we're going to do another Etherspot contract transaction. Just like before, where we've got the staking TransactionKit token address here. Now we're calling stake in the new contract, and we only need to pass in a number. Here's the method name as well. And then we're going to pass in the 10 TransactionKit tokens. So this is always going to succeed because the way we run these transactions is we run them atomically. So this Etherspot approval transaction is always going to run first, which means the staking part of it is always going to be successful. And yep, as we see here, that is essentially all it takes to get up and running with a really, really nice staking dapp, which is using Account Abstraction. The UI is really nice. I'm not going to run through it again here just because I did that at the start. So yeah, that's the end of the tutorial. Today we've learned how to interact with custom contracts using Etherspot TransactionKit. We've learned how to do the ERC20 approvals, and we've also learned how to batch transactions together, which, as you can see here, very quickly makes for the ability to create really powerful tools with a really lovely web tool like UI using Account Abstraction. If you have any questions, anything at all, you can reach out in Discord or Telegram. All of the information we talked about today and talking about the functions will be readily available in the Etherspot docs as well, which is on etherspot.fyi. So yeah, hopefully that was really helpful for you, and I'm excited to see what people can build with this amazing tools.